The samurai warrior and helmet is 1 in 100 million. Edgar Bennett was a private interior decorator who had a shop out on West Bancroft, out near McCord Road. Only he never advertised. You wouldn't know Edgar Bennett even existed unless you were into interior decorating. But he also sold some art. I do not remember how I met him, and he had netsuke. And in 1976, I came home for the bicentennial, and I went out to Edgar's store. And I said, "Oh, I want to see your netsuke." And I'm looking through the netsuke, and there is the head with the black lacquer. And I said, "Oh, I love this head." I said, "How much is it?" He said, $400. I said, "A little expensive, but I'll buy it." Now, Newt Johnson, who was probably Toledo's greatest major Asian art collector, was so secretive that nobody in Toledo knew he existed, nor did anyone from the museum ever see his collection. I did. He had netsuke, he had jades, he had everything, and he had a great book collection. And I became friendly with him because of Edgar. And I'm in his beautiful house one day in Ottawa Hills, and he said, "You know, I don't collect much anymore, and I have some books, netsuke books, that I don't need. Is there any one that you would like?" And there is a very thick book of the Barron's collection, English. And the Barron's collection was printed, the original printing was in 1909, and I believe there was a second edition of it in 1912. And I said, "I don't have the Barron's book." And he said, "Please take it." Thank you. So I'm back in Japan, and they're beautiful black and white photos. Remember, this book was originally done in 1909. And there, number 40, is a fabulous samurai warrior face with a helmet. And I look at the face and I say, "Gee, this looks just like my face." Now, it only shows a front view, but when I look up the description, it talks about the black lacquer for the hair and how the himatoshi, the cord hole, goes through the helmet and goes through a certain place in the head because it has to be worn as one piece. And I take a magnifying glass and I count the strokes in the eyebrow, identical. So I go to Raymond Buchel, the world's most famous Japanese netsuke collector, who's written 7 major netsuke books. And he happens to live 6 blocks from me in Tokyo, and we're good friends. And I said, "Raymond, this looks like the Baron's samurai head." And he says, no, it can't be. And I said, the eyebrows, the exact same amount, everything's identical. And he said, "How would it have ever been separated?" And I look up in the back of the Baron's book, and when it sold in 1912, it was the second highest price netsuke, £2.5 quid, which was horrendous, $5 or $10. It was the second most expensive netsuke in a book that had 1,500 to 2,000 netsuke. And I'm always wondering, Where is the helmet? 1980, I moved to LA from Tokyo. And I get a call one day from an English, he was sort of a dealer. And he said, Richie, he said, I know you love helmets. And I've got a helmet that you'll love. And I said, great, I'll come out and see it. And I go out, and there is the helmet. It's the same wood, and it talks about all the things on the back of that are described in the catalog, which there's no picture of it. They're all there. And I said, may I borrow the helmet? I go home, I put it on the head, goes right through.
Oh my goodness.
It is the Baron's helmet. So there is no way for me to figure out how this very expensive netsuke has been split in two. Both the helmet and the head could be worn as netsuke by themselves. You can't take it apart now, but they could. And he wanted an outrageous amount, something like $2,000. And I said, it's ridiculous. I'm not paying you $2,000 for the helmet. And so he said, well, do you have any extra paintings that you'd like to trade? And I said, yes. So I traded him a painting by one of the Japanese artists that I owned 20 of his paintings. So I got the helmet. 3 weeks later, a major English dealer is in my condo, and he looks at the piece and he said, my God, that's the Baron's piece. I said, yes. He said, I've never seen it. I said, nobody's ever seen it. Since it was sold, we never knew who originally bought it in 1908. Very few nets that come in two pieces. They're made in one piece. But somehow this unsigned carver made it in two pieces. They got split somewhere between 1912 or whenever and in the 70s. Nobody knows. And I had it printed up in a major netsuke journal that went all over the world, begging anyone who'd ever seen the face and or the hat or knew anything about it, please let me know. No one in the world knew anything about it. And after my brother passed away, and I thought, you know what? Nobody deserves this netsuke except the Toledo Museum of Art, and I will give it in my brother's memory. As much as I love having it and that I can play with it every day, I want the museum to have it. So in 2000, my brother passed away in 1998. 2 years later, I gave it to the museum. In theory, I'm the only person in the world who could have ever put the two pieces back together. And that's the famous story of the samurai warrior and helmet, and Virginia Ashley, who was the first lady of netsuke and one of the world's greatest collectors, authorities, said, Richie, honey, it's 1 in 100 million, if not 1 in a billion. There's just no other netsuke that has ever, a major netsuke that came in two pieces that has a story like it. And Toledo will own it forever.